Hello, my name is David Edens. I am the Instructional Services Librarian at Baldwin Agricultural College, and today we'll be discussing library resources as well as some general research techniques. The Baldwin Library on the Tifton campus is normally located in the Carlton Center. However, due to a renovation, we are currently located in the Branch Student Center on the bottom floor across from the bookstore. Our hours are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Friday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. We do have an open door policy, so if you're ever on campus and need help, please feel free to come into the library. The Baldwin Library's webpage on the Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College website is a vital resource for accessing our online resources. Now you can get there by using the URL at the bottom of this screen, or by going to the ABAC homepage, clicking on Academics, scrolling down and finding Library number 9. Clicking on that will bring you down to the Library section, then click on Learn More to get to the Library page. Now here you're going to be able to find several important links. Mainly at the very top here you'll find our resources. That's GILFind, the catalog, GALILEO database search, that gives you access to our databases, and the LibGuides course and research guides. This is where you're going to be able to find our research and reference guides about what the library has to offer for a given topic. Now below that you're also going to be able to find our opening hours. You're going to be able to find contact information, and you'll find our staff directory. But we're going to scroll back up and go ahead and start with our catalog, GILFind. Clicking on the catalog square on the library homepage will bring you to our catalog, which is called GILFind, which stands for Galileo Interconnected Libraries. This is a catalog where you'll be able to access not only books from the ABAC libraries, but also books from other libraries, as well as accessing our scholarly journals. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at your account. So if you go to the top right corner of this page, you should find a link to sign in. Click on this sign in link. You're going to use your same email address and password that you used to log into your email as well as your GeorgiaView account. Please note that you do need to include the @stallions.abac.edu at the end of your email address. Once you've logged in, you should be able to access your account by clicking on the link that replaces the sign in option in the top right corner. This is what your account page should look like. This page includes several important pieces of information, including any loans you have checked out, any requests you have placed, any fines and fees you may owe, any blocks which are placed in your account, as well as the Galileo password. That password this semester is Remind. The password is updated at the beginning of every semester. You should receive an email the first couple of days before classes start with the new password, as well as you can find the password on this page. Now, while we're here, I do want to talk briefly about any items you might have checked out, as well as that fines and fees page. You can check out books from the library for 28 days and DVDs for 14 days. You get 2 renewals on any item you have from us, which can let you keep a book for about 84 days or a DVD for 42. We prefer not to actually handle any money if possible at the library, so as long as you get the items back to us, we will forgive any fines. That said, if it hits the end of semester and a book turns up as lost, we will have to pass that on to your student accounts, which can have some severe repercussions, including keeping you from registering for classes or even graduating. So if something happens to a book and it's damaged or lost, get in touch with us as soon as possible and we'll work something out, okay? Now, if you have anything checked out from another school, which we'll talk about in a moment, this page is the best place to come to renew those books, but they will not show up as soon as you log into your account. If you look on the gray bar above the loans and fines section, you'll see Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College. If you click on the arrow next to that, you'll get a list of any school you've checked a book out from in the past. Select the school you wish to renew the item from, and you'll be able to renew it there. Now let's take a look at what searching for books in GILFind looks like. First, we're going to look for books here at ABAC. Now, I've used archaeology as my sample search, and if you look at the right-hand side of the search field, you'll see that we have Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College selected. Now, this search does include not only books at ABAC, but also our ebooks and journals. available through GoFind. So on the left-hand side of the screen, I've highlighted a couple of options you have to narrow down your results. First, we have the availability. This helps you differentiate between books that are available in the library and those that are available online. So if you don't want to see ebooks, you can click on available in the library to only see those physical items. Now, because of the recent consolidation with Bainbridge, some of the books that appear in GILFIND are at the Bainbridge sites. So in order to limit that down, we can go down to Library and select either Bainbridge or Baldwin Library. Once you've set your limits for this search, you can find whichever results you want to use and go ahead and click on that to open up the book's entry. And this is what a book's entry looks like. You're able to access the bibliographic information on this page as well as see where it's located in the library. Furthermore, you will notice that there is a citation tool embedded in GILFIND. You can use this tool to provide the citations you need for your papers. I've also highlighted the request option. This can be especially useful for online students or those who are working off campus. This allows you to place a hold on a book. That can ask us to pull the book from the shelves for you, or it can even put it on hold so that when it gets returned, it'll be set aside for you. Once this book has been requested, once we have it available for you, you will receive an email. This next slide is going to show you what that request screen looks like. This is the screen you should see once you've clicked on the request link. From here, you'll be able to set your pickup location, choosing from either the Baldwin Library in Tifton or the Bainbridge Library at the Bainbridge site. The not needed after field sets the date at which we will cancel the hold and put the book back on the shelf. And the comments field can be used to let us know if the book needs to go anywhere in particular from the library. For example, our Moultrie students can request that a book be placed on a courier for them. Again, once the book is available at the front desk, you will receive an email. You'll come in to check it out just like you would any other book, and you have it to use just like any other book. Now that we've looked at how to order books from the ABAC library, let's see how you can get them from other schools in the university system. As part of the University System of Georgia, ABAC students are able to order books from any of the 28 other institutions in the system. To do that, we're going to use the same search engine we used a moment ago, but we're going to use the drop down on the far right of the search box to switch from ABAC to University System of Georgia. Now you're going to see many more results appear on your page, and you'll be able to select a book from the list to place an order for that book to be sent to ABAC. Once you've found a book that you want to order from another school, you're going to open up a page that looks very similar to the one we saw with the ABAC books. But instead of immediately clicking on the request link, you're going to scroll down and see a list of USG libraries. We use a system called GIL Express to transfer these books between schools. Because it is a van courier system, we suggest that you pick the library that is closest to Tifton or your preferred pickup location to order the book from. So in this example, I've highlighted Albany State. Once you click on Albany State, you'll see that same request link pop up. From there, you'll be able to specify which school you wish the book sent to, and from there, the same options for the pickup location. Now, generally, we suggest you use ABAC in the Baldwin Library, but if you're closer to Bainbridge, you can use the Bainbridge pickup location, or if you prefer, you can use any USG school as your pickup location. Because we are all part of the same system, you're able to use any library in the USG system as if it were the ABAC library. So as long as you've got your gold card or you know your 918 number, you can use those libraries the same as ours. You can pick up books from them. You can use their collections, their computers, everything like that just fine. So if you're ever in another town and want to use the library at that university, feel free to do that. This concludes our section on GILFIND. We'll now be moving on to GALILEO. You can access GALILEO using the databases link on the library website or the GALILEO link at the top of GILFIND. GALILEO stands for Georgia Library Learning Online. You may have used GALILEO in the past at a public library or in high school. However, at ABAC, you do have access to the largest version of GALILEO, which is called GALILEO Scholar. Now, through Scholar, you have access to 263 databases, which contain academic articles, ebooks, video, pictures, audio, and more. It's an excellent resource for your research materials. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to best use Galileo shortly. This is the Galileo front page. For most of your searches, you're going to start with the search field directly next to the red arrow there. This is what's called a Discover search. It allows you to search through most of the 263 databases that I mentioned before. I say most because there are a few databases which are actually linked out from Galileo, and you won't be able to access those through the Discover search. If you wish to access those, perhaps your professor has suggested them or you just know about them already, you can use the databases A to Z link beneath the Discover search to access at databases directly. Once again, I am using archaeology as my sample search. This is what your search results screen will look like once you've done a general Discover search in Galileo. As you can see, you have results listed below, as well as some options on the left-hand side of the screen for narrowing down your search. I've also highlighted the Advanced Search tool underneath the search bar, as well as the specific Limit To options below. We'll be looking at these two search options in the next couple screens. Galileo Advanced Search allows you to better control how Galileo uses the search terms you're including. As you can see here, it's carried over archaeology from my previous search, and I've also added ancient Egypt as an additional search term. Next to ancient Egypt and the other additional search boxes, you'll see a drop-down box that currently contains the word and. Other options in that drop-down include or and not. These three terms are called search operators, and they tell Galileo how to relate your search terms. The and term will only return results that have both archaeology and ancient Egypt as subjects. If I used an or term instead, I would expand my number of results, as I would get any result that had archaeology or ancient Egypt or both of them in the subject field. Finally, the not term would exclude ancient Egypt from my search, so I would not get any articles that had anything to do with ancient Egypt. These three tools can allow you to very fine-tune what you're getting back from Galileo. It can be very helpful if you're dealing with subjects that have multiple names involved. The example I often return to is the United States. Galileo uses the term United States, US, America, and United States of America to refer to the country. I can guarantee that any article that's really about the country will include one of those search terms. It almost certainly will not contain all four. So use the or term to help capture as many different variable options as you can. The not term can be useful for excluding other common definitions of a term. For example, if I was doing research on the Apple Corporation, I might want to include a term for not fruit. The Galileo Advanced Search screen also includes other options beneath these search boxes, which you can use to further fine-tune your searching. However, as you're about to see, many of these tools are better used from the results screen rather than from this initial search screen. Thinking back to our original results screen when we searched for archaeology, I hope you remember the list of different options we had on the left-hand side of the screen. This is a closer look at some of those options. These are called limits. Search limits are tools you can use to help limit down your search. They help you add some factors in to allow Galileo to either include or exclude certain features. For example, we have checkboxes that allow us to limit down to full text articles, in which we will only receive results that have the full text available on Galileo. Scholarly peer-reviewed journals, in which we'll only receive academic articles which were published in scholarly journals, which were reviewed by other scholars who said that their research methods and conclusions were valid. You're going to hear peer-reviewed journals a lot in college, so this tool can be very useful. The third checkbox we have here is the ABAC Gill Catalog only option. This will limit us down to just the physical and ebooks that are available in the ABAC Gill Catalog. Honestly, this tool is of limited usefulness because you're going to be able to get these same results in perhaps an easier fashion using the Gill Find catalog we discussed earlier. But if you prefer to search in Galileo, this option is available. Finally, we have a publication date slider. This slider allows you to set the publication date for an article. This can be very important for your research because, as we will discuss later, the newer an article is, generally speaking, the more credible it is. So, generally speaking, you probably want to focus on the last 5 to 10 years in your publication date. Now, this can change based on what you're researching. In the medical field or in certain sciences, you may find yourself going as recently as 2 years ago, whereas in literature or history, you may want to go back 50 or more years. So just use a little bit of judgment, talk to your librarians, talk to your professors. We'll help you figure out what the best date range is for your topic. Now, beneath these limits, you'll find a limit by type option, which allows you to select which format or formats will appear in your results. This can be a very valuable alternative to the scholarly peer-reviewed journals checkbox that we talked about a moment ago, because when you check that box, you only get those academic articles back. You're going to lose any news reports, magazines, industry reports, things like that could instead be useful to your search. Instead, I would suggest taking a look at the limit by type option down here, especially clicking on the show more option at the bottom of the list, because that's going to allow you to select multiple different formats to show up in your search. So instead of just using the scholarly peer-reviewed journals, you might find it more useful, especially if you're working with current events, to check off academic journals, magazines, and news. Or you can select whichever other formats may be most useful for you. One of the most powerful and useful limits in Galileo is the subject limit. You can find the subject limit on the left-hand sidebar about halfway down the search results page. This limit allows you to search specific subjects that appear in the subject fields of the articles in your search results. The best way to use the tool is to use the Show More option at the bottom of the list of subjects. This will pull up the screen you see now, which is a full list of the subjects that appear in your search. You can then check off the items that seem the most relevant to the research you want to do. And you can even use this tool multiple times, limiting down again and again until you get the articles that are most relevant to what you want to research. Now, once you've done that, and you're down to whatever number of articles you feel most comfortable with, most professors suggest about 200 to 500, you can then start looking at articles, opening them up, and seeing which ones are the most relevant. My advice would be, after you've read the title of an article, go ahead and look at that subject field again. Make sure it's subjects you actually want to read about. And before you read the article, go ahead and look at the abstract, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Here we see the page that will show up when you select a search result in a Galileo search. We have options for full text on the left-hand side of the screen. We have bibliographic information in the center, and on the right we have some tools. We'll talk about the tools in a moment, but first let's pay attention to the different options you have for full text. We have HTML and PDF in this particular article. Both of these formats can be very useful. HTML gives you the clearest copy of the actual text because it's actually been transcribed into type, whereas PDF shows you the original article. The PDF generally gives you better authorial intent, and it also shows the pictures better than HTML does, as HTML, if it has the pictures at all, puts them in a single section, whereas with the PDF, you can see how they were originally presented. Now, I mentioned a moment ago the abstract. You can find that in the bibliographic information. An abstract is more than just a summary of the article, especially in your academic reports. You're going to find that they typically discuss the research methods used and give you a good idea of the results. Using this abstract can be very helpful because you can read a single paragraph instead of reading a whole paper to discover an article is not what you need. Now let's take a look at those tools on the right-hand side of your screen. The first tool you have available is the Google Drive tool. If you have a Google account, you can sign on and connect it to Galileo so that you can export the full text of the article into your Google Drive. It'll make its own EBSCO folder there for you, so you'll be able to keep that separate from your personal articles. You can also add items to a folder in Galileo. Please note that you need to be signing into Galileo to do this. This is separate from your ABAC login. It is separate from the remind password. You will find a sign-in option at the top of the screen when you're on your search result page. Click there to create an account with Galileo. It has already been paid for, and you can use whichever email you prefer. But the reason you need to log in here is because anytime you use this or the Create Note tool that you see a little further down the list, if you are not logged into Galileo, it will not save what you've done. So make sure you're logging in so that you'll be able to come back and always have that folder available for you. Now below the Add to Folder, you have the Print, Email, and Save tools. These options are pretty self-explanatory. As a note, you can save to a hard drive, flash drive, or to the cloud using Dropbox. There's a citation generator built into Galileo. The only two citation styles that are used at ABAC that are not included are ASA, which is used by our sociology classes, and the wildlife program, which uses its own citation style. But those classes do provide literature for making citations. Below citations, you will find the exportation tool. This allows you to export the citation into any citation software you might use, like EasyBib or EndNote. Below this, we do have the Create Note tool. Like I mentioned before, you do need to log in if you're going to use this tool, but it allows you to add your own personal notes to search results so you can know why you kept it, for example. Below this, we have the permalink option. This is a stable URL that will bring you back to the article every time you use it. If you prefer to use links as opposed to saving your search results, make sure you're using the permalink and not the link at the top of your screen, as that link will change usually at least once a week. So if you prefer links, use the permalink tool. Finally, we have a share option. You can use this tool to share search results via social media or an email. Speaking of the email tools, you can use email to request an article for which we do not have the full text. All you'll need to do is open up the email tool, email the article to the Baldwin Library at abac.edu account, replace the email from with your address, put your name in either the subject or comments field, and put article request in the subject field. This will let us know that you need the article, and we will request it through a process called Interlibrary Loan, or ILL. Typically, due to the digital nature of articles, we should be able to get that article within just a few days for you. This concludes the portion of today's talk about the Galileo resources. But before we finish up, I do want to talk about one more set of resources. So back on the library homepage, we're going to go back to that Connect to Resources section, and we're going to go ahead and open up this LibGuide course and research guides link. This brings up a list of the different research guides that we have available for our students to access. These give you a good overview of some of the resources that we have available, both in the library and online. Today we're going to take a look at the Freshman Composition LibGuide. This is predominantly for our Freshman 1101 and 1102 English courses, but it provides resources that are useful for all students. This is a screenshot from the Freshman Composition Research Guide. Specifically, this is a shot taken from the Using Sources section of the research guide. This section gives you some ideas about how to better incorporate your sources. It also gives you an idea about why we cite things. It's more than just avoiding a bad grade on your paper. It has to do with academic credibility as well as helping other researchers find your sources. And also gives you a nice little infograph here about when you need to cite. As a rule of thumb, if you did not think of this yourself and it is not common knowledge, you need to cite. Even if you change every single word of what you're saying, you still need to cite it. And there are different tabs in here that explain when to use certain kinds of citations and how to better incorporate your citations into your paper. So this page is useful not just as a guide for avoiding plagiarism, but also as a way to improve your papers. So I encourage you to make use of this guide. The final section of the research guide is called Evaluating Sources. On this tab, we have what's called the CRAP test. The CRAP test stands for Currency, Relevancy, Authority, Accuracy, and Purpose. These are 5 questions you can ask yourself about a website or article to try to determine how credible it is. Currency has to do with how recently the website was updated or how recently the article was published. Relevancy is about what it actually has to do with your topic. It also has to do with intended audience. For example, an article written for a 3rd grader is not as relevant as an article written for a college student when you're doing your research. Authority is how does a person claim to know what they know? Typically, this is shown either via certificates and degrees or citations. Accuracy is how accurate their information is. This is typically determined by comparing it to other sources. And finally, you have purpose. Why did they write what they wrote? You need to try and determine whether they're writing their article in order to inform you about the situation, or if it's there to attempt to get you to buy a product, for example. So if a source fails one of these 5 questions, it doesn't necessarily mean the source cannot be used, but it does mean be careful. If it fails 2 or 3, you probably don't want to use that source. This concludes today's presentation on library instruction. Again, my name is David Edens. You have my contact information here on this page. If you ever have any questions or run into any problems with your research, please do not hesitate to send me an email or give me a call. I'm here to help. Thank you again. Goodbye.